The day started like any other quiet morning by the lake, sunlight glittering off the water, the sound of ducks gliding by, and the distant hum of a motorboat cutting across the far shore. I was sitting on the edge of my old cedar dock, coffee in hand, when 3 SUVs rolled up my gravel driveway like an invading army. The sound of their doors slamming shut shattered the peace. And just like that, I knew my day, maybe even my year, was about to get complicated. The woman leading the pack was dressed like she was going to court, blazer, sunglasses, clipboard clutched tightly. Her name, as I'd later learn, was Linda, president of the Crestview Lakes HOA, a title she seemed to carry like a royal crown. Behind her were 2 board members, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. "Mr. Hayes," Linda called out, her tone already accusatory. "We've received multiple complaints about your dock violating community standards. You'll need to remove it within 14 days or face daily fines." I almost laughed, but I bit it back. "Community standards?" I asked, still sitting on the dock. "Ma'am, this isn't even part of your HOA." Linda's lips thinned. "According to our surveyor, this lake, including its access points and connected waterways, falls under Crestview Lakes jurisdiction. That means your dock is on HOA-controlled property." I stood, brushing sawdust off my jeans. "You might want to double-check that." She gave me a smug look. "We already did." At that moment, I realized something important. Linda wasn't here to talk. She was here to win. But the thing was, this wasn't just my dock. It was my grandfather's. Built by his hands in 1965, back when this entire area was a patchwork of farmland, creeks, and open wetlands. He used to tell me stories of fishing out here with his buddies before the developers came and carved the landscape into what's now a maze of gated communities. That dock wasn't just a piece of wood. It was home. So, I simply said, "You'll get my answer soon," and walked away. That night, I dug out an old cedar chest from my attic, filled with my grandfather's papers, maps, and letters. Among them was a faded county plat map from 1953 and a yellow deed marked with my family's name. My heart skipped when I read the description. It didn't just list my property. It described the water rights, including all adjoining lakes, streams, and navigable waterways within the boundary lines of the original Hayes estate. The boundary lines stretched across the entire county. I barely slept that night, flipping through more documents. When my grandfather sold portions of the land to developers decades ago, he'd retained riparian rights, legal control over all natural water systems branching from the original Hayes homestead. It meant every lake, pond, or connecting creek in the area was technically under our control. Even the ones the HOA claimed as their private lakes. My hands trembled. The HOA didn't just overstep, they were trespassing. The next morning, I went down to the county records office. The clerk, an older man named Jim, had known my family for years. When I laid the documents on the counter, he raised his eyebrows. "Lord Almighty," he muttered. "You know what you've got here, son?" "I think so," I said. He nodded. "This deed's been grandfathered in through every zoning change since the 60s. You're not just a landowner, Nate. You're the water rights holder for the entire watershed. Every HOA, every developer, every property with a dock or a boat ramp, they're technically leasing your water." I sat there stunned. The power of it didn't even feel real. "Can you certify this?" I asked. Jim grinned. "Oh, I'll do you one better. I'll have a copy sent to every HOA attorney in the county. Let's see them squirm for once." A week later, I was back on my dock when I heard familiar footsteps crunching on gravel. Linda again, but this time, without her entourage. Her face was pale, her confidence gone. "Mr. Hayes," she said softly, "there seems to be a misunderstanding. It appears your family holds, certain water privileges." I chuckled. "You mean ownership?" "Yes, I'm aware." She tried to regain composure. "We'd be willing to negotiate." "Negotiate?" I cut her off. "Linda, your HOA built boat ramps, private docks, and even a fountain, all without permission. I could technically fine you for every structure that touches my waterways." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I'm not cruel, I continued. But I'm done being bullied. From now on, every property using these waters will pay a small maintenance fee. Not to your HOA, but to the Hayes Water Trust. And you'll post new signage acknowledging that these lakes are under my family's stewardship. She blinked. You're serious. Dead serious. For once, Linda had no comeback. She turned and left, heels crunching in defeat. Over the next few months, the dynamic in the county changed entirely. The HOAs that once dictated every homeowner's decision now had to answer to me whenever they wanted to dredge, dock, or even host a community boat parade. But instead of using that power for revenge, I did what my grandfather would have done. I restored the lakes, cleaned the neglected streams, and opened up public access points for local families. One summer afternoon, as kids laughed and fished off my dock, an older woman approached. She introduced herself as Linda's neighbor. I just wanted to thank you, she said, for standing up to them. They've been running this place like a dictatorship for years. It's nice to see someone bring a little balance back. I smiled, watching the sunset reflect off the calm water. Balance, I repeated. That's all my grandfather ever wanted. A few weeks later, I found one last letter hidden in the old cedar chest, a note from my grandfather written decades before I was born. It read, "Greater than, this land and its waters don't belong to me. They belong to everyone who loves them enough to protect them. When you hold power, use it to free others, not control them." I sat there on the dock for a long time, reading those words again and again. The HOA came to take my dock. But in doing so, they reminded me of who I was, the grandson of a man who believed that real ownership wasn't about deeds or boundaries. It was about stewardship, legacy, and the courage to stand up when others try to take what's yours. And as the last bit of sun disappeared behind the trees, I realized something. I didn't just own the waterways. I protected them. For everyone who would ever sit on these banks, watch the ripples dance, and feel, even for a moment, that they belong somewhere peaceful.